So, Yamini, can we have the presentation?
So we are from the batch of 2018 to 20. As part of our studio in semester 2, we have been introduced to the topic of eco-cultural landscape of Braj. So I am Yamni, Animal, and Susan will be taking to you through our journey. So so the, so this is the content. This is how the structure of the presentation going to be. What is cultural landscape? Cultural landscape are landscapes that have been influenced, affected, or shaped by human involvement. What does Braj means? The term Braj means pasturated and the settlement of Yadavas. It's also known as the land of Lord Krishna. Braj also known as the Braj Bhumi or Braj. It's located on the sides of Yamuna River within the center of Mathura and Vrindavan in Uttar Pradesh. Also, it includes the states of Haryana, uh, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh. So, the story of has carved the bridge with cultural values. The life of Lord Krishna was spent on the banks of the river Yamuna. So this timeline has been showing how the Lord Krishna's lifeline has been spent along the river and the importance values to the different places in Mathura and Brij. And the river the river Yamuna has highly praised flowing in Uttar Pradesh, India, figures prominently in the visual and performing arts of Mathura, a cultural landscape associated with the life of young Krishna. The river Yamuna have high cultural value, is sustained by ritual behavior, the honor of by bathing, worshipping, and circumlating the land water in front of steps known as ghats. Aim of this studio project is to regenerate, propose, and integrate master plan for conserving the integrity of historical sacred landscape of Mathura. The main focus is to enhance the visitor's experience, to map the evolving and development of spatial and the socio-cultural strata of the study area, to study landscape association of historical components high significance in present days, to identify threats and issues in the study area and improve and regenerate spatial quality around the river through landscapes. So the chronology map has been mapped by us. It shows how the development has occurred in Mathura through the where the where the temples have been evolved from the evolution of temple from the evolution center of the temple. The settlement has been developed, and how the settlement and the cultural values has been linked to the river Yamuna also can be seen. And also we can see how the river Yamuna has been meandered and how the year wise it's been changed over also. This is the map of the Vrindavan also, where the Yamuna rivers has been plotted to. So as we have taken we have taken the stretch of 1.5
Yamini, can you
kilometers.
be please a little bit louder?
Hello, it's audible?
Yes, 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 yes. Now it is audible
Yeah,
properly. Yes. Thank you.
yeah. So thank you so much. Based on the tourism influence and the rich cultural values, we have selected the stretch from Krishna Ganga Ghat, that is from Krishna Ganga Ghat to the Dandi Ghat. So we have selected 1.5 kilometers based on it. We have done a detailed study on it. So on the eastern side, we can see all the agricultural land and reserve forest. In the western side, we can the densely packed settlements with the ghats and ritual activity taking place. The center, we can see the island will be where the agriculture practice also taking place seasonally. So these are the existing sections. It's been cut in a different areas to show how the landform been there. overall breadth, we have marked the parikrama path, how it starts and ends, and how the overall area has been linked with the cultural values also. This is a detailed parikrama path in Mathura and showing a one-day itinerary. People start from Sri Krishna Janma Bhoomi, and from there they'll start. They'll go to the important places and reach there at the evening for Vishram Ganga Ghat for the Aarti. So where in evening it will be totally crowded in the ghats. People will be very tightly packed to see the Aarti, and where the rituals still be very high, and cultural value you can see where it will be very emotional also. So landscape character overall bridge. Where in the western side we can see the mountain. We have different character of overall bridge. We have can see the different character of landscape character in the bridge. The western side we can see the mountains, and the eastern towards the eastern side we can see the farmlands and the forest. And in the towards the east we can see Yamuna River running over it, and the settlement is closely packed and being developed near the river. So, as a landscape character of in the from the and the area which we took, we have mapped also from Krishna Ganga Ghat. It's been eroded and been they are modifying it into make us a grooves from grooves, and from Rohini Ghat there's a ghats, a regular ghats. It's running towards the Dandi Ghat, and middle of the Vishram Ghat we can see the proper ghats with people have ritual activities taking place from Randi Ghat to and this Dandi Ghats. So other side we can see people will be farming. They farming has been taking place, and other and they used to move from West Ghat to East Ghat through the both services. It's a topographical map showing the high point. In high point, which is 316. At the high level is 316. From there, it's been towards the Yamuna River. It's been sloping towards the Yamuna River, which is the lowest point we can find 125 in the Yamuna River. Over to Anmol. Anmol?
Hello. Yes, am I
Yeah, yeah.
audible? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So here we see the depositional pattern of the river and geomorphology. So it is from our studies, it is observed that the major soils that are found here are channel alluvium and terrace alluvium. So channel alluvium is like the color is grayish white in color. And when you come to the texture, it is like fine to coarse grained sand. And the terrace alluvium, it has like sequences of grayish color, and water is like again medium, and that the soil condition the Yamuna. And come to the geomorphology. So from the geomorphology map, we have found that the land is completely formed because of alluvial deposits that are carried deposited by the river throughout its course. So from this we infer that the site is like in the region of fluvial origin of older floodplains, where the soil is deposited of which is of terrace alluvium, and which is in the static region of and of channel alluvium. This is due to the laminar flow. So the image on the left depicts the soil on the island, which is channel alluvium, and on the right, which is along the sides of the river banks, is terrace alluvium. Next slide. The next. So we have taken soil samples, like some different locations along the river Yamuna. So after the sample testing, it is observed that the soil is like rich in zinc, magnesium, phosphorus, and phosphates, and it is poor in potassium, nitrogen, and it has less organic matter. So the major crops grown here are like rice, wheat, bajra, barley, rapeseed mustard, and potato. The next slide. And we have used many of the secondary data sources, and from the secondary data sources it is observed that the crop yielding capacity also has decreased, and this is due to the use of extensive use of fertilizers and pesticides. And not only that, it's also because the farmlands are now changing to urban lands, so the percentage of the net cultivated area has decreased drastically over the period of time. So that is one reason why the crop yield is also decreased. And now the hydrology. From the hydrology study, based on the stream orders, it is observed that the river Yamuna comes under the fifth order stream. And the next slide. And this is from the source is from district drought, and it is observed from this map. Shows about the ground level. Based upon this, it is observed ground level Vardhan is the least presence of hillocks. It is moderate throughout the region, and it is highest on the east side of the river. And that is because of the presence of forests and farmlands helps in the population of water level. And not only because of that, it's because the complete terrain is river side. So that is how level is there. The next slide. So we have also taken the soil and water, and we have compared it with the WHO. And the conclusion, the pH value is S, and compared to pH, like 600 to 9, from 700 milligrams per.
Anmol, you are not audible. Hello? Your voice is breaking.
Hello.
Hello?
I'm now.
Not properly.
Hello.
You're not audible properly.
Hello. How about now, ma'am?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Anmol. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, from the district voucher of the Mathura, like from the groundwater level, it is observed that the groundwater level near Govardhan is the least. That is because of the presence of hillocks, and is moderate throughout the region, and is the highest on the east side of the river. That is due to the presence of forests and farmlands, which helps in the percolation of water. And it is also because the terrain, it slopes completely towards the river side. And the next slide. So we have collected the samples of soil and water samples, and we have compared it to the WHO standards. So we have come to a conclusion that the pH value is acidic, and the TDS value, as per the WHO standards, it has to be 800 to 900 milligrams per liter. But as per the samples that has been tested on the site, it is like around beyond more than 2000 milligrams per liter. And this is mainly because of the usage of fertilizers in the farmlands, and because of the untreated industrial waste that has been let into the river. Next slide. So we have mapped the TDS and the turbidity levels, and it is observed that the TDS, it is higher near the Vishram Ghat, and the turbidity is higher on the Krishna Ganga Ghat. The next. And when it comes to the character of the static soils on the bat, so because the river has a meandering character. So on this side, we can see that on the eastern side of the bank, the deposition takes place, and on the western side, at the top, is where the erosion takes place most. And not much of erosion is observed along the western edge due to the presence of the ghats. But the streams, these streams, the blue lines, they carry sediments where siltation is like observed near the ghats. And the curvature that is on the eastern part is where the maximum deposition takes place. The next slide. So from the footprint, it is like clearly observed that the built versus the open spaces. And on the western side, it is still untouched and it has a pristine nature. And on the west side, it is like completely urbanized. The next slide. So this is a land use map that we have studied. So due to the presence of historical forts, ghats, and the temples on the western edge of the river, the settlements happen to grow around these sites. So, and it is because of the tourism and pilgrim influx is also around these historical forts and ghats. And the dharamshalas, which are depicted in red, are all along the river bank. So the visitors, they spend their time near the ghats and they can participate in the aratis and pujas during the evening time. And when it comes to the streets are very narrow and it has like shops on both either sides which sell the religious artifacts. So next slide. So we have studied the different character of the streets along the river. The streets are mainly narrow and the buildings are mostly residential in this area. And the major occupation of the people is mainly involved in selling of the religious artifacts, or they are involved in certain religious activities or boating. So when it comes to the street point, the ground floor is a dedicated space for the shops and the first floor is for the residents. So the streets are always quite crowded because of the traffic and parking, and many activities are happening always on the street. The next. So we have considered the major user groups, which include the pilgrims, the residents, the tourists, and the commercials. And we have mapped the movement pattern. So when we happen to map the movement pattern, we get to know the spaces that are quite commonly used. And we also get to know where there are like major traffic conflicts also. Next slide. So the CLDP, from the macro level perspective, the policies are proposed to conserve the major canals by providing a riparian zone, which varies from 30 to 50 meters. And the existing forests that are in like dark green, they are like conserved. And as per the NGT norms, we have provided 100 to 50 meters as like the buffer zone, because it's like the most highly sensitive zone. And as per the river regulation zones, the RRZs, which would fall under the Environmental Protection Act 19, a few activities are prohibited from the high flood level. So the prohibited activities includes like dumping of solid waste, construction of a new embankment, land reclamation, storage of inflammable and toxic materials, and withdrawing water for commercial purposes. So for soil stabilization, we have provided a riparian zone that is along the river bank. And for islands, so as to reduce the water pollution and erosion. So in this process, like during this policy making, we have conserved and preserved the historical buildings like Dwarkadish, Dhruvat's Rishi, Kanskila, and the Ghats, and we have proposed to remove all the encroachments from the high flood line. So as to promote tourism and to conserve the cultural value, we have proposed for the western zone, that is near the river Yamuna, the western side of the river Yamuna, it's a dedicated space for ritual and cultural activities because of the presence of temples and ghats and historical forts. And on the eastern side of the Yamuna River, which is still an ecologically rich site, we have proposed a nature park. The next slide. So this is a proposed master plan. So we have provided spaces for ritual activities like bathing, aarti platforms at different levels, so as to accommodate the devotees and tourists. The levels allow, so when we happen to have given different levels, so these levels allow the flood water to spill onto the floodplains, which are like now being encroached. So when it spills onto the floodplains, it provides a temporary storage and reducing the flood peaks along the downstream and erosion without hampering any of the activities. Now, when it comes to the eastern edge, which we have proposed as a natural park, so we have proposed activities like bird watching towers, boating decks, and cycling trails and pathways. So these trails take us through a glimpse of the lifestyle of the people. So the riparian zone helps in maintaining water table and to extend the width of the productive landscapes. The next slide. So the island that has been formed because of the deposition of the river, the island has been completely conserved. So one, by trying to place large body debris along the edge, and so that it will slowly, it slows the flow of flood water. And it also helps in increasing the stability, resilience, and recovery. When you start planting trees, they stop the soil erosion and runoff. It also provides shelter and allows habitats to grow. And by limiting overgrazing and aerating the compacted soils, we can improve the fertilization rate of flood waters into the ground and help reduce floods. Next slide. And these are the proposed sections that take us, that gives us like what kind of enclosures are being proposed in this religious, cultural, rich heritage site. Next slide. These are the sections that are being cut across the natural park that is being proposed on the eastern side of the river bank. And these are the few of the views that are again on the eastern side of the river bank: the trails, the cycling tracks, and the grooves under the banyan trees. And this is an image of how we have proposed the different levels. So these different levels that is on the western side of the river bank helps in using the space throughout the year. So once during the monsoon seasons, once it floods, the water level reaches its peak, making the space not usable for anybody. So when we try to provide it at different levels, so we have provided at different levels the small ponds. So these small ponds are where the rituals happen. Like if it has been flooded at the first level, it could be used in the next level. So these help in making the space active throughout the year. So conclusions from the studio exercise of the sacred cultural landscapes of Braj, we have analyzed within the framework of phenomenology of the place experience and cultural landscape conservation for managing a place with cultural significance. So the assessment is based on the criteria of the landscape character, the typology like the rarity at the regional level, and the landscape scenery and the heritage, historical heritage, the cultural layers in Braj, and the visibility of the cultural layers. So thirdly, we have tried to identify the important issues and the observations were noted, and we have identified the future needs, the obligations, the resources, the opportunities, and constraints are being studied. So finally, we have given the development guidelines in the form of the development strategy proposal for the designated cultural landscape. And the outcome of the project is the identification and the assessment of significant cultural landscape, which preliminarily can be classified as organically evolved landscape and in the subcategory of the continuing landscape, which is at the regional level. Yes, thank you.
Susan,
Thank you,
Yamini.
everybody. And like I take this opportunity to, we have been indebted to our studio faculty, Professor Surendra Suneja sir, for his support, information, and time. And we are very thankful to our professor, Sonal Tiwari ma'am, Richa Raji ma'am, and Professor Saurabh Pupli sir, for sharing their knowledge, guidance, encouragement, and constant monitoring. This has been helping us throughout our journey. Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful presentation, Yamini, Susan, Anumol, and it was like going back, revisiting the old memories, and yeah, very apt, very sensitively done project. So yeah. like some more. Yeah. So I would request the participants to please share the questions to the presenter.
Ma'am, is it okay? Deepika here.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, we can hear you.
Yeah. So, excellent work. Like ma'am said, very sensitively done. I was just wondering, did you talk to the government authorities and present your work? What was their reaction? I had a curiosity for that because do they value cultural landscape the way you proposed, or they were convinced or not convinced?
Hello, ma'am. So we haven't yet we have submitted our reports, but we haven't presented on a like indirect to them.
Okay. Also, there is a paper published by Nalini Thakur from conservation point of view. She
Yes,
also
ma'am.
respects cultural landscape. So,
Yes.
did you see any help from there? I mean, did you relate to it in any way?
So during our initial stages, we were referring to Amita Sinha's ma'am's paper, and we've been referring to many textbooks, and we have referred to many a
Yes,
few of.
ma'am. Yeah, actually, they received a lecture from one of Nalini's ma'am core team member, Professor Vishaka Kautekar. So she talked about the sacred landscape of Braj, and that became their starting point. So they documented these 12 sacred groves which were already present, and hence after that became a base. Then they were able to successfully integrate the cultural and the natural landscape heritage.
And the reason, ma'am, I asked was sometimes architecture and landscape, how they work together, that would be the beauty of the project. So I was just curious about that part.
Yeah.
That's all.
So luckily we have Professor Vishaka in our institute only. So she did share the report and certain maps to them. So that enlightened them. So they went with a base study of the entire region. They mapped the region. They identified the regional boundaries. They did the literature review before reaching. So the 10 days which they spent over there were spent very. Were very useful for the field study. So they were already well informed. So whatever water quality assessment, soil testing they did on the site added to the authenticity of the data they received, and they could it could further enhance uh, their study. So
Thank you, ma'am. Very beautiful study. Thank you.
thank you. Do we have, yeah, but yeah, yet because of the time limit of the studio, we could not engage with the second important aspect, which is giving back to the authorities or the re-engaging with the community on the design proposal. That is some lagging, and maybe in future we'll be doing it. So,
Thank you all the participants for today's session. Hope you have enjoyed a lot.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.